Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you about the petition on the Greenway. As you probably know from the report itself, it's a residential road with shops that actually back up onto the Greenway as well, just a few shops who have their goods delivered there. I believe back in 2000, there was a petition that was done to have a yellow line inserted on the Greenway, and it was for part of it anyway. For us residents, obviously safety is the biggest concern that we have, and we're a road that's extremely close to West Ryford Station, so we have the overground, the underground, and we also have obviously the shops which people come to and from. So I think what we found in the last couple of years, particularly the last couple of months, is that there's been an increased amount of traffic that's been building up, to the point where residents' entrances to their properties are being blocked. The shops have been blocked, and obviously coming in and out of our own driveways, our vision is quite obscured, and there have been incidences involving myself where there have been potentially near misses involving pedestrians and vehicles. So we want to try and make the road a little bit safer for everyone, for all residents. There have been incidences with my neighbours as well, who have been involved with asking people, if they could move their vehicles, which are blocking driveways. And some of us have had abuse, threats, and in one instance, there was what we believe was a revenge attack where somebody had their tyres slashed later on that night. However, we do not have CCTV evidence, so I'll admit there's no hard proof of that. So we're very keen to try and address the situation to make it safer for us, make it safer for pedestrians. Like I said, there's a lot of families, children that also live there, and also make it convenient for other people. I believe in the report there's been a lot of discussion with HS2 and HS2 workers, and there's been ongoing debates or complaints regarding staff members not being able to park, and hence they've overspilled onto the Greenway, where there's a section which is free parking, and then there's a 1 hour restriction only between 10 and 11, and then after that it's free to park. It's our opinion, or my opinion rather, in discussion with my neighbours, that HS2 aren't just the only culprits there. So opposite the Greenway, there's a residential property which I believe in 2007 gained planning permission for the site to build 415 flats with 468 parking spaces. I do have it on good authority that there's a number of people that have more than one vehicle but only one parking space within those flats, and I believe there has been a lot of discussion within residents there who have said it's free parking on the Greenway, go and park your car there, just move it between 10 and 11. And this again has caused a lot of congestion for other people, residents. There are people who come and park, particularly post-pandemic when there's flexible working time. People can come and park from 11 o'clock, use the station, and not return until later that evening or the following day. So we'd like to propose some form of change within the road. Now, I'm not going to pretend to be a transport expert at all. It's not my speciality, but it's clear to myself and obviously many of the residents who have signed the petition that something needs to be changed in order to make it safer for all of us. We have been out of pocket ourselves because most of us have now installed security cameras around our property in fear of being abused or attacked, or people coming back as well when there has been difficulty with parking issues outside. What we propose I guess there's twofold. So I recognise that in 2000 there was a section of the road which wasn't given a yellow line because of certain people on the road that don't have driveways or parking places. What the majority of petitioners have told me is they would like to see the parking restrictions increased, so 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon. I want to respect everyone's decision on the road itself and everyone that it will affect that lives there. And for those people above the flat, if it's more convenient for them to have that one section which is currently free to be a resident permit for them, then that might be something that is a compromise for everybody to then work with. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, John. Thank you. So, I think before I have a number of questions that revolve out of that, but Councillor Lavery may add or subtract from that. So I will invite him to speak first, and then we can go from there.
Thank you. Yeah, as the petitioners explained, Greenway is very close to West Ruislip Station, so it clearly gets it clearly does get station parking. The West Ruislip development, which was granted permission some 10 years ago and is now full, does have lower levels of parking allocated to it, in common with many new developments, than probably the number of cars in the developments. The situation is exacerbated by HS2, without a doubt, because whilst we, as a council, have been working to persuade HS2 to persuade their workers, tell them not, to come by public transport and not to park, obviously we don't have an enforcement mechanism for that. So that is clearly making the situation, I would argue, worse at this time, and may be the reason that things have boiled up recently. Obviously HS2 peak construction is next year, and after that their numbers will start to reduce back. There is additional car parking going to open, of course, on the West Ruislip Golf Course early in the new year, which will again help that situation. With all of these things, there are two ways to deal with it. One is you end up with residence parking schemes. They bring their own challenges in terms of permits and in terms of cost and all of those things. I think the suggestion of actually having another set of hours would make a lot of sense, because that does stop most of the people using it all day, because you can't then come at 11 o'clock and come back at 6 if there's a slot in the afternoon. It's not going to take everything away. The other suggestion I would make, and it might be worthy of consideration, is whether we considered it as an experimental traffic order, given that some of the issues with HS2 may well disappear in a year or year and a bit, and therefore this situation may actually get worse. And then at the end of the period of the experimental order, if that's the route you chose to go, you can then make a decision as to whether it's made permanent or in fact whether the problem has eased back and the restrictions are no longer as needed as they were.
Thank you. One quick question of you, Steve. Do we have a parking zone near here?
No.
Nothing. Okay. And the reason I ask for that is that the problem with installing a parking zone, as the councillor sitting next to you will well know, is that you can't do it for tiny little bits. You need a group of roads, an area, to make it work. Whilst I appreciate what you're trying to achieve in terms of the flat dwellers or the cars belonging to the flat dwellers, that wouldn't work technically. Councillor Lavery mentioned this permanent/temporary solution, which does seem to have some appeal to me. I don't know how we solve the bit about the flat dwellers. I mean, maybe we leave that bit unmarked and they They win or lose. If they find a space, great. If they don't, they don't, which is pretty much what happens at the moment, I'm guessing. And see how it goes. But certainly we could add an afternoon slot if that's what it needs, and we could certainly look at adding extra time. Is it worth undertaking a stress survey?
I don't think it is. I think that Thank you, Chairman. I think the suggestions put forward by Councillor Lavery and the lead petition are very helpful, and certainly I think we could investigate extending the hours and introducing an afternoon slot. It seems like a very sensible solution to me. I think the problem will always be that the people who live above the flats don't have any off-street parking provision. But as a compromise, as Dr. Verm said, it could be that we could leave that as it is, and as they do now, first come, first served basis. If they find a parking space, then all well and good.
Yeah, I think that makes some sense. I think also introducing it on a temporary basis. I mean, temporary as in 18 months or 2 years or something would make some sense too, because I do wonder how much of HS2 impacts this, and it may be that when they're finished and there are trains rolling through at 180 miles an hour, you'll look out in the street and say, actually, there isn't a problem here anymore, or the reverse may be true, and they say, yes, it's just as bad because there are even more commuters now going into West Ruislip Station, and therefore we could make it a permanent thing, or we could move from there to a full res park scheme, looking at the Greenway and probably a few other roads along there, like Oak Avenue and whatever, lumping it all in. And that solution would go a long way, I think, to stopping the second car syndrome from across the road, perhaps. No doubt they'll then be knocking on our door asking for some sort of solution to that, but it's a problem. I mean, the problem we have as a borough is that we are a car-bound borough, and much as the mayor would like us all to get onto bicycles, it's not a practical option. The positive here is there is a good bus route just at the end of the road, and there's a train station immediately close by. But if you want to go north-south in our borough, it's extremely difficult to do it any other way than by car. So it is a mixed bag. But it seems to me to make sense to move to to extending the hours of operation perhaps from an hour to 2 hours, and to introduce a second 2-hour slot in the afternoon. And I will instruct officers to do that, and we will try it. And if in 2 years' time, well, look, if in a year's time it's a disaster, or in 2 years' time, then come back and let's have another talk, I think would be my recommendation. So, can I, have you got the basis of that?
Yes, thank you.
And on that basis, I will move the recommendations, deleting recommendation 2 as no longer relevant. So I've moved. Wait a minute, I'm on the wrong. I've turned over too many pages. I was looking at the. Agreeing number 1. I think that's it, isn't it? And 2 and 3. Do I need 2 and 3?
yes.
And 2 and 3. So I'll agree all 3 recommendations with the caveat of the instruction I've just given. Thank you. Welcome those who've just arrived. You are on candid camera, I've said to others. This is live on YouTube, so if you shouldn't be here, then it's too late now because they'll have seen you. But we'll move now to the second agenda item, which is item 5, Field End Road. Do we have a petitioner? We do have a petitioner. Mr. Faith, I must ask you to go over there and talk into the microphone, because those listening from afar won't be able to hear you if you sit where you are. You have how long? 5 minutes?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. You don't have to use 5 minutes, but you have 5 minutes. when you're ready.
Yeah, good evening. We had a bit of trouble trying to find a way into this building, so that's why we were running a couple of minutes late. You're probably aware that we did a petition 5 years ago relating to the parking for Field End Road, the residents of Field End Road, to be included in the residential parking scheme. And when we was here 5 years ago, I think Steve was here last time we were here, but basically it said that the council could see no objection to us being included in the scheme, subject to there being enough spaces available in Zone E. And they did a parking stress survey report, and in that parking stress survey report, which I believe you got a copy of, it clearly shows that there was plenty of parking available. And the impression we got from the meeting, the hearing at the council, was subject to the parking stress survey showing there being spaces there, the council could see no reason why we couldn't be included in the scheme. Then, once you had your meeting with all your councillors, I don't know exactly how it works, it was then decided for whatever reason that we don't know that we couldn't be included in the scheme. So I then took it up with the East Coast Residents Association and with my MP, and the MP, David Simmons, basically seemed to think that the council had not followed the law as it should be. He seemed to think that any new builds should be excluded from the residential parking scheme, but any existing buildings that have been there for at least 20 years should have been allowed to be included in the residential parking scheme. So he then wrote to the council, had discussions with the council, and then he recommended to me that I should do another petition just to show that the residents of the flats in Field End Road still want to go ahead with this application, and then hopefully this time around we'd get a more favourable outcome. And that's basically it.
You need to press your button again to turn it off. Thank you. Okay, so you've got yes. I think it rightly covers your history. The history element to your petition is roughly correct. The six, because Field End Road falls into two wards, the 6 councillors at the time were asked what they thought. And they all agreed that it shouldn't go ahead. And just for the avoidance of any doubt, I wasn't the cabinet member for highways at the time, but I'm not trying to shirk the matter. I'm just pointing out factually. Now, David Simmons is a friend of mine, and he's a jolly good MP, and I hold him in high regard. But he's clearly well outside his zone of influence when he starts talking about parking. And I'm minded to ask officers to write to him and tell him to stick to what he's good at. However, he's wrong is the short answer. The parking zone scheme relates to the streets off Field End Road, not to Field End Road. Field End Road has a different scheme, which is a stop and shop pay and display scheme. So there are 2 schemes in operation in that area. The Field End Road scheme, which is for shopping and the like, and the second scheme, which deals with the parking residents, the residents parking scheme, which deals with the streets around that. I think I'm right in saying, is there anything you would add at this point, Mr. Austin?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I mean, the Field End Road scheme, Zone E one, is a bit of a hybrid scheme in that residents who live above the flats, as you know, Mr. Faith, are entitled to park on the pay and display parking bays up till 10 o'clock without charge, and then they can decant to the nearest car parks with a permit, which they don't have to obviously pay to park in the car park. So it's slightly a bit of a hybrid scheme, whereas the parking zone, Zone E, is more of a residential parking zone, and basically people with a Zone E permit don't have any ability to park on the pay and display parking bays or in the car parks for free.
So just to be 100% clear, residents on East End, on Field End Road, thank you, can park for free in our car park?
Yes.
And we don't charge them for this permit
No.
at the moment? Okay. Right. Okay. Sorry, I did think that was. I just wanted to be absolutely clear. I hear what you say. there is no doubt that it is probably true that the parking, the residence parking scheme is not overly. I mean, it is used, but it's not used to its capacity or beyond capacity. That's certainly true, and it remains the case. I think that I'll need to give this a bit more thought, and I will undoubtedly consult again with your local councillors. Yes, go on.
Well, if the council last time spent all that money doing parking stress survey report, surely they would have done that if they felt that it wasn't going to, we weren't entitled to park there. Why would they have gone to all that expense of doing a parking stress survey report, only then to decide that no, we're not allowed to join the scheme? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I can't answer for the decision that was made before, but I would expect that as part of the decision-making process, knowing whether it was even possible to make room on those on the residence bays would be one of the vital steps. There'd be no point in the council saying yes, that's fine, you can go and park there, to find that they were over parked and there wasn't sufficient space. So I'm sure that's probably why the previous stress survey was undertaken. But I think it's a delicate issue. I'm encouraged by the fact that residents can park in the car park for free, and obviously on the street outside of what I call shopping hours. And I hear what you're saying, but I'll have to give it some thought. I make no promise, but we will come back to you reasonably quickly with an answer. What do you need me to agree here? So I've met. Well, recommendation 1 agreed. I note 2. I will discuss the matter with resident services. Well, those 4. I'll agree those 4 recommendations. All right. Thank you. Uxbridge Road, Hayes. Mr. Dillon. Sir.
Thank you very much for arranging this meeting. I'm in contact with Mr. Jones and our local councillor on a regular basis. And before saying this, because several visits were made to the parade since I launched the petition, even by Council Mr. Roy Clark, and certain issues has been discussed. I hope he has reported back in relation to the Balmore parking issues which we all shopkeepers faced, and I'm representing most of the parade. Our basic concern is we are a business. The council do provide tickets, parking for visitors to do the shopping and the parade. But when the petition was signed in 2020, at that time there was no key-in facility to enter the registration, so that facility was widely abused. People park their cars there and keep changing the tickets. And I'm glad the parking and safety, Mr. Austin is here, and I'm sure he's got the complaints, people trying to come into the parade. There was a long queue on the Oxbridge Road in order to come into the parade, because there is no flow of the traffic. People park their cars and they're not moving it, so that caused the congestion on the Oxbridge Road, and there is a serious health and safety issues. And secondly, on the commercial point of view, what our request is at the moment is restricted hours are from 9 to 5:30. and which we have requested to extend 7 days from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Even the people who park at night, who's living surrounding areas, they take in their cars to the works and they come late night anyway. So that's not affecting them. What is affecting the businesses after 5 o'clock is chock-a-block. No people can find a place in order to park. So if it's a restricted hours, anybody came to the shopping, they have in their mind, I go 30 minutes free, I do whatever need to be done, and I can move on, and other people can park there. And comparison studies, same issue was held in Hounslow West, Bath Road. There was a traffic and safety department got involved, and they have analyzed the same scenario, and they have extended the restricted hours from 8 to 8, 7 days. And now the parade have a very smooth process, and all shopkeepers are happy. And especially, I want to emphasize one thing. We are a small traders, and Sunday is the most busy day for us because most of the big shops like Tesco, Sainsbury's are closed, and people likely to come and do the shopping in this parade. And Sunday is the very hectic environment. I'm sure you have passed through the area, and because it's a dual carriageway, one carriageway is blocked in order to enter to the parade. It's really a health and safety concern there as well. And when you're extending this hours, council is not losing as well as we are, because if somebody likely to park, extended hours are extended, restricted hours are extended, you're likely to get more revenue, and as well as over commercial atmosphere, we try to serve as many customers we can on Sundays. So the revenue comes, because it's like I don't want to emphasize more, because because what I want to say is Hounslow West is the very right example, because other councils and the borough, they have considered this and they implement it, and the review after that, even people, you can go on the social media, they are happy with that. Even the residents, because I'm telling you another two things I need to, when the block was on Oxbridge Road, most of the houses at the back of the shopping parade, they can't have the access. They are blocked on the, it's not just the traffic which is blocking to going to the parade, the whole residential living at the back, they all get stuck on the Oxbridge Road. So I'm representing, as most of the shopkeepers are here, and our plea to the council is to consider very carefully, because there's two aspects. One is our financial, second health and safety, and our concern is to, I think the red light is flashing, so I'm gonna I think most of the things which I need to mention I have, but it's our plea to help us in the businesses. After the COVID, most of the businesses are struggling. Thank you.
Thank you. Stay there for a minute. Mr. Austin, you got something you want to say on the subject or not? It doesn't matter, I don't. Could you press your button?
Yes, sure.
Sorry.
No, I'd just like to thank Mr. Singleton for bringing his petition to us. Just as a point of interest, the current scheme operates Monday to Saturday, 8 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. And I understand that you want to extend that to 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day of the week. Just for clarity,
Okay.
Chairman. Thank you.
Well, thank you. What you say makes good logic. I mean, what is disappointing, of course, is that people are so readily willing to cheat on the council's generous offer of half an hour free. It's not, it's not unheard of. We're aware of it, but and we have been looking at ways that we can tighten that up. Whether in the short term we can change the machines, I don't know, because we have only recently introduced machines. We are looking at introducing, bringing our parking onto one of the parking apps, which will help in due course. But we can certainly have a word with enforcement to perhaps take a closer look at some of these cars, and we'll take the matter from there. Sorry, yes. Sorry, I hadn't realised you were a councillor. Apologies. Yes, please do.
If you do us a favour, just extend the restricted hours for the time being. That will solve hell of the problem.
I think that's perfectly sound. I don't have any problem agreeing to an 8 to 8 and adding the Sunday in. And can we do that on what might be described as a temporary traffic order, or does that need to be something more? I was just thinking if we could test it and see how it goes, and if it's okay. As a first step. We will look at the machine issue. I appreciate what you're saying, and I think it's a good point. Whether it's easily done, I'm not sure.
So, Councillor Bassett for Belmore Ward, I just want to echo some of the things that the shopkeepers have said to me. So Mr. Dillon and several others have explained to me that they regularly notice long traffic queues entering the parade at weekends and in the evenings, and after 5 p.m, especially on Saturday night, people are parking without restrictions, and so the genuine customers are struggling to find parking spaces, and therefore the business owners would like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. restrictions 7 days a week to help with the traffic flow, and for them to input their car registrations as well. And this will help the businesses keep their customers. As Mr. Dillon explained, they're struggling due to other issues on this parade, and you will be seeing other petitions for that reason soon. There's a huge build-up of traffic, as the petitioner said, coming into the side roads, and that is a serious issue for example, ambulances that want to access the parade and the roads near it. There's constant traffic on that junction. My experience as a councillor is I visit this area regularly, and I can never find parking. I have a reason to speak to certain residents living above the shops or certain shop owners, and I have to park many streets away and then trek back. But I have a genuine reason to be in this particular area. If somebody wants to buy a phone or a fruit, they can just keep driving to, a part of Belmore where they can park more easily. So the several businesses have told me that they are actually losing business because of this issue. Antisocial Behaviour Council staff have also attended this parade with me. The head of the department attended to look at various issues, and then spent quite a lot of her time actually telling people not to park on the double yellow lines. So your own staff have also seen the extent of the issue. Whether you're there at 11 a.m. or whether you're there at 8 p.m, there's constant misuse of the pavement and the parking restrictions. So for these reasons, I think a parking stress survey would be really useful, and we ask you to consider the parking restriction extensions that are proposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm not sure whether a parking stress survey would actually help us at all. One bit of good news I can give you, though, is that we are on the point of opening a car pound within the borough, which will mean that we will then be able to remove cars that are parked illegally, so double yellow lines being a fine example. And people won't do that very often at the cost it will cost them to. So we regard that as a positive step in trying to bring back some of the bad habits that some of our residents and also people from outside the borough, of course, have developed. I see no problem in introducing this. Let's see what goes. My query is in respect of the machines, but we can look at, they're two separate items, so there's no reason why we can't install the issue. One slight concern I do have is over residents above shops. I'm not sure where they park currently, but clearly that will make it more difficult for them. The second thing I'm conscious of because it's happened elsewhere, is that often part of the problem with parking in these next to these parades is caused by the shopkeepers themselves, either parking their vans there, or their own cars there, or their staff have come and parked their cars there, and actually it's that is causing the loss of a significant number of the spaces that are available. I'm not saying that is happening here because I don't know, but it's certainly a problem we've had elsewhere. But obviously, if we attack it in the way we're doing currently, and particularly in the shorter term, I think if we can get parking enforcement to pay more attention down there, particularly to those abusing the half-hour free, we might make some progress in that regard, and that would catch the shopkeepers and their staff just as much as errant parkers in other respects. Sorry, Councillor, you wanted to have another quick word? I will give you a quick word.
I just wanted to add that quite a few of the shops have actually got sort of parking spaces on the back street, or there is space on the back street, so I think that the shop owners are probably not the culprits in this case.
I'm delighted to hear it.
Thank you.
Mr. Dillon, you wanted to add something? Please do.
Even though the back alley, which is back of the shops, the residents upstairs, they do park at the back at night. At the front is totally just keep changing the tickets, and even people catching the buses and going to even Oxbridge, and they just park there. So it's really like a traffic flow, which when the restricted hours will solve that problem, I think 80 to 90%.
Okay, well, I'm happy to approve that, and let's try it. And I don't know how quickly we can instigate it, but we'll certainly move forward to do that and see what we can do. On the question of the machines, well, we'll look into it certainly. It's being investigated.
Thank you very much.
And we'll come back to you and let you know.
Thank you very much.
What comes out of it. Thank you. Sorry, I should have just added, before I close that last petition off, we've got a lot of shopkeepers here. Was there anyone that was desperate to add something different to what we've heard, or are you happy with what is been proposed? I'll take that as agreement. What I would say now is, due to good fortune or whatever, we're running slightly ahead of time, and because of our YouTube commitments, we can't start the next petition, which is to do with Cranford Drive and Crowland Avenue, until 2:45, which is in about 2 minutes' time. Anybody that has had their petition hearing is more than welcome to leave. You don't have to feel obliged. You're more than welcome to stay, but if you want to go home, go home. No, look, do the petition. Do that's fine. Yeah. I didn't read. Those yellow forms are for the public, not for councillors, aren't they?
No, I don't know. I'll fill them out.
Oh, yeah. Well, she'll be upset that I didn't know who she was. Okay, according to me it's 7:45, so we can carry on with the next petition, which is item 7, and it is Cranford Drive and Crowland Avenue. Do we have a petitioner? Madam. When you're ready.
So I went round to all the residents in Cranford Drive and Crowland Avenue, because I am concerned, and so are the residents, about the number of cars coming down that road and the speed that they are coming down the road. I have sent in photographs, I hope you've seen them, of the amount of cars coming down there. I've recently sent you a picture of an accident which only happened over the weekend. There's been various accidents which I'm surprised has not been listed anywhere on the police records, and it's really concerning. It's concerning to everybody. I've got 126 signatures. I know I only needed 20, but I wanted to prove how important this was and how everyone is concerned. I think that really says it from my point of view.
Okay, thank you. Always grateful when people are brief. But seriously, it's clearly an issue. I was going to ask questions. Is this a particular issue? Are cars going in both directions, or is it typically from one end to the other? Because often we have rat running, which is generally in one direction only. But this is both, is it?
Yeah. If you see the picture which I took last week, it was completely chock-a-block, and it can be like that for a long time. There can be people complaining, and we get coaches going down this road. It's only a small road, and there's a school local as well. If you're a pedestrian, trying to cross the road is difficult, and vans are parking all over the place as well. It doesn't help.
And is the parking in the street unrestricted?
Yes.
There's no zone or anything. Sorry, I should know the answer to that one. Cranford Park School, primary school, isn't actually in...
No.
No, it's not. Because what I was going to say about schools is people are very keen for me to introduce 20-mile-an-hour zones, and it's a particular bête noire of mine. But the one concession I have agreed is that we will agree to 20-mile-an-hour zones outside schools. But that wouldn't apply here. It's clearly a problem. I do understand it, and I think you're right to raise it, and we should certainly look at doing something. The what is always the question. Just as I don't like 20-mile-an-hour zones, I'm not overly keen on speed bumps, tables, whatever you might happen to call them. Because we have found that, well, obviously there is an impact in terms of emergency vehicles, if you install speed bumps. Sometimes you can get away with putting in what are the small ones called? Cushions. Sorry. But if you've got a big enough car, you can drive straight over the cushion without pausing for breath. So they don't really work, in my opinion. And we have found in the past that when we install speed bumps tables, everybody's dead keen until they find out that one of them's going to be outside their house. Yeah. And then they're not quite so keen because they suddenly realise that there's a lot of noise comes through it. And we've recently installed a raised zebra crossing, not around your way, which was petitioned for at length, not just the crossing. The crossing was there already, but that it be raised. And we finally agreed, and we put the raised crossing in, and we had nothing but complaints ever since because of the noise of lorries, and particularly skip lorries, and the chains rattling every time they go over this crossing, and they now want us to take it out. Well, bad luck. It's not going to happen. But my rambling comment really is that it's difficult to find a good solution. But there are a number of options open to us, and sometimes simple things like flashing speed signs have an impact, and we'll certainly look at that. It may be eventually I may be forced to agree to the odd table, but the trouble again then is, particularly in the long stretch of roads like you've got here, is unless you put in a dozen, it's no good, because you put one at one end and one at the other end, and people just speed between the two. So you then end up putting a whole raft of them in, and with that come all the other issues that people don't want them right outside the house, emergency vehicle issues, and all those sorts of problems. So what I would recommend. I know this lady here is. I know you. Do you have a desire to speak? Because I'll hear you before I make any sort of decision.
Thank you. Really, just to reiterate the fact that you're on about the emergency vehicles and that there has been an issue where they actually couldn't get through because the roads have been blocked. So it's sort of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It is hard finding solutions. I'm a pedestrian, so I come at it from a totally different angle. The safety is quite bad down there. You've got kids, you've got lorries parked on each side of really small roads where they've actually become like main roads with the sheer amount of traffic going down it. For me personally, I think the yellow lines need looking at. I live on a bend. There have been numerous accidents on this bend. They have put yellow lines, double yellows, on one side of it, but not the other. And it's a blind corner. So I sit there listening to everybody effing and jeffing at one another because they won't back up and they won't back up. And the reality is, 2 yellow lines there, both cars could actually pass.
Thank you. Tell me, Mr. Austin, do most of the houses, well, maybe you could answer this, do most of the houses down there have off-street parking?
A lot of them.
Yeah.
Because the trouble with this is well, here's another element of difficulty. We could introduce more yellow lines, which would have the effect of clearing cars from the road. Mm-hmm. The downside of that is that it encourages cars to go faster, because suddenly they've got clear roads, whereas before they had to travel carefully because there were cars parked on either side and there's not room to pass, or there's only room to pass in places. So one can attempt to clear one problem and actually create another. But it's something we can certainly look at. Is there res parking in this area in general? Okay.
Nestles Avenue's got residential parking, and the
so
only real thing for the double yellows, from my point of view, that really needs it is that blind corner. You've got a blind corner, you've got cars coming down a very narrow road, which is Crane Gardens. They come down Crane Gardens, you've got about 3 car lengths before you hit a blind corner. You've got them coming that way, you've got them coming that way, and... Yeah.
You see, often we find that congested roads slow cars. And when you clear them, they speed up. I mean, we've even found that when we resurface a road. When the road's got a few potholes and cracks and bumps and stuff in it, people travel slower, and all of a sudden you put this lovely smooth surface on, and people go, oh, whoopee, and behave accordingly. So there are all sorts of issues, but it's certainly something we need to investigate, and I will instruct officers to do just that. Sorry, Mr. Austin's got a question.
Yes, sorry. If we could, I don't know about what bend we're talking about, because there's lots of bends here.
If you come down Crane Gardens...
There's a map. Mr. Austin will show you a map.
It's between 16 and 20 Cransford Drive.
Thank you.
Put yellows, double yellows one side, but if they were the other, it would at least...
Okay.
Sorry, can I just...
Of course.
The other thing is where the junction from Cransford Drive going into Crowland, the double yellow lines need to be further, they need to be extended to stopping these big lorries parking there, because they're cutting the corner.
Are these lorries there for some purpose? I.e., is there sort of a big...
Vans, they are. They're just, I don't know whose they are, they're just there.
Oh, right, okay.
So...
Can we look at a sort of lorry ban? One of these...
The size of vans are probably going to be the vans that the people bring up.
Yeah. No. All right. Okay, well, look, I think the best thing I can say is that we will give it a serious look at. Mr. Austin will communicate with you as we proceed along this route. We will start with things like a speed survey, which will confirm, and also we can look at vehicle sizes, because the machinery can pick that up, to establish the facts behind it, and go from there. Okay?
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Nice to see you. But not least, I will note that the ward councillors, Councillor Lackmana in particular, but the others too, sent an email in basically supporting your request. So I acknowledge that. We seem to have two recommendation twos.
Nothing's coming up, yeah.
Oh, I'm on the wrong one. I've done it again. Sorry, I've turned over to look at the map and then see the recommendations immediately after it. Okay, so we'll move the three recommendations here.
Brilliant, thanks.
Okay. Should have said that all with the mic on, so hopefully they could hear it. Anyway, you have 5 minutes. Please press the button and speak for us up to that period.
Thank you very much.
Need.
I'd like to obviously discuss the petition that I put in place Long Drive. I submitted some images that were taken in July. Can I ask if you've seen those images from the car collision that took place?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Do you mind if I pass them to you now? Yeah? Is that right? So this is a car accident that happened outside my house on an early evening on Saturday, the 16th of July, where a driver decided to speed down Long Drive, undertake another driver, hence losing control, and went straight into my car. Both cars were written off, and thankfully no one was hurt. But it was quite eye-opening and quite scary when I obviously witnessed the result of the accident, and led me to the petition today. Obviously, you can see the images. They're quite scary. The collision and the speed that the driver was going down. I know it's not the councillor's fault that there's a driver being irresponsible, but I do strongly believe that the council have a duty to the residents to make them feel safe in the road that they live down. I got 78 signatures during a school holiday period, so a strong sort of outing, and each one of them, when they saw the photos, were quite shocked. They thanked me for obviously doing the petition, got some good feedback from them. I did get a few hits back saying that I was wasting my time because of the previous petitions that they have put forward. So this being the third petition that we have put to you to put speed measures in place, I feel that if there was measures in place, that this collision would have been prevented. Being a new father, it's given me the drive to push this forward, because I strongly believe that if I was walking my son in his little pram at the moment that this collision took place, it could have seriously harmed someone. So I think it's quite important that we look to put some speed measures in place, and feel like I've got the backing from the residents, and with Steve, albeit now the third petition that we've put forward to the council to try and put some measures in place.
Thank you. One comment I will make early on in this, and actually it applies to you ladies too, is that of course speeding is not a council issue, it's a police issue. And I would recommend to both of you, all of you, to hassle your local police. You all have neighbourhood police, and hassle them, because most of them have, well, all of them as far as I'm aware, have access to speed guns. And if leaned on long enough and hard enough, they will actually come out periodically and point their speed gun up and down your road at appropriate times, and hopefully discourage people or catch a few people. So I would say that as a general comment, because the council may or may not be able to do some things to slow people down, but it is the police who have responsibility for speeding. And much as we'd like to control the police, we don't. So we work with them, but we don't have authority to... I should find myself. Authority to force them or make them go out. So I think that is worthwhile. But really, seriously, hassle the local police to come out with their speed guns and point them up and down the road. A question I will ask you, which I asked the other ladies and so generally, is whether this is a problem in particular from one direction, or is it a problem in both directions?
It's a problem in both directions. We find in motorbikes are using it quite often to do wheelies. Lots of eyewitnesses have reported speeding down that road. I appreciate you saying it's a police issue from a speeding point of view. I still strongly believe that if there were speed measures in place, it would prevent speeding down the road. So although you can't control the speeding element and that is a police issue, there is measures that can be put in place to prevent, and I think that's what we're looking for now, is to stop that.
Yes, and you probably heard what I said. I don't know how, I did see you come in, but I can't remember exactly when, so I don't know how much of the previous conversations you heard, that there are obviously pluses and minuses to all of the possible actions we might take to discourage speed. And one of the biggest ones, certainly, of speed tables or speed humps or pillows, is that people are always keen to have them until they find it's outside their house. That there are noise associations that go with it. There's pollution associations that go with it, from cars slowing down and then starting up again, or vans or lorries or whatever. And the emergency vehicle issue is a significant one. If your nearest and dearest needs an ambulance, then they've got to go over 12 speed humps, A, to get to you in the first place, and then B, when you're in the back of it, going to wherever you need to go, or your nearest and dearest is in the back. It's not funny. So there are pluses and minuses with all these things, unfortunately. The other issue is that in a long road such as Long Drive, the quantity of these humps is an issue, because and that magnifies the associated problems that go with it. Because clearly, if you have 3 at one end and 3 at the other, then what happens in the middle? People tear off again. But it is certainly something we can and will look at again. I'm quite happy for us to look at it again, to see what we can come out with. It may be in the short term we put in a couple of illuminated signs to see if that has any effect. They do work in some places. The problem with many of these things is that someone who is determined to put their foot down, it's very difficult to discourage them. Where they do work is those who are perhaps accidentally speeding, who suddenly see the sign and see they're doing 34 or something, and think, and then they slow down. So they work to some degree. But we will have a look, and we'll... Mr. Austin, you want to add?
Yes, just like to thank Mr. Fitzgerald for the petition. Out of interest, Mr. Fitzgerald, did you get any feedback from the police as to what actions they're going to take against a driver that damaged your vehicle?
No action. They're not taking it further.
It's disappointing to hear, given your testimony and the way in which the driver was clearly driving without any due care and attention. It's disappointing that there isn't further action can be taken, but that's useful. And I think the only other thing, Chairman, if you're agreeable to it and you're happy with the recommendations, is to identify some locations where speeding is perceived to be at its worst. So we can then we can
the survey point
yes, for the surveys,
yeah. Have you done that with? Okay. Does that make sense to you? Answer your...
Yeah, it does, and I appreciate your time. And I know Steve will say a few things. It's worrying that it's the third time the residents have come and asked for something to be put in place. So this is a accident has happened here, quite a serious car collision has happened. My concern overall is if nothing is done, what will need to happen for something to be put in place, and unfortunately that could be someone's life, and this is something that can be avoided. And I appreciate the speeding, and I appreciate the police side of things, but some speed measures need to go in place to prevent that, because it is clearly an issue, and I appreciate that it is an issue for this road.
Is it, and it's mainly cars or vans as well, or?
I was just saying to Steve before we came on, you have trucks, you also have Arctics bypassing going down this road, and motorbikes use it. either end, they stop at the junctions and they use the long drive to have a speeding moment. So it's a issue for all types of vehicles.
Can we look at road narrowing? I can't remember what you call them.
Just collect the data.
Yeah. Let's collect the data. I think Mr. Austin makes a valid point. Let's collect the data, let's analyse it, and then we can see what options there are and where. And we'll show and options there are to proceed from there. Does that make sense? Councillor Tuckwell, you haven't spoken. Would you like to add anything? You can have 3 minutes if you absolutely need them.
Probably won't need 3 minutes. Okay, thank you. So, thanks for hearing the petition this evening. I'd firstly like to thank Mr. Fitzgerald here, but also the 75 residents that signed the petition and the 95 residents that signed it before them and the several dozen residents that signed it before them as well. So Long Drive is what it says. It is a long, straight road. What compounds the issue here is that one half of Long Drive already has raised tables, the northeast half. So they get to Queen's Walk, they've had their sort of curtailed journey to that point, and then they can speed up for the southwest half. There are many examples of excessive speed, and the images that you can see in front of you are certainly testament to that. What was interesting is the point around the police, and the police have actually raised this as a concern at their ward panel meeting that we attend with the police on a quarterly basis. They have been active in community speed watch campaigns, but I agree that they need to probably be a bit more active, because it's not just Long Drive. There are several other roads which run parallel to this, the Fairway being one of them, which has also had a petition in the last couple of years. My councillor colleagues certainly are in full support of this, Councillor Mills and Councillor Makwana. To compound matters, we also have adjacent schools. I know they're not directly on Long Drive, but there is several schools very close by, which can they have after school clubs. It's not just about the key time when schools are dropping off and picking up, but they do have several out school clubs. So you certainly see sort of handfuls of children in times when you wouldn't normally see them. And Long Drive's geography, as you can see from the map, it is a dead straight road, and it is long, hence the name. And then, as Mr. Fitzgerald has said, it is used as a rat run. You know, people try to avoid the congestion on Victoria Road, cut through to Station Approach. So if we can do something through the speed survey, if we can do something with flashing signals, if we can do something creative with road markings even, big circular 30-mile-an-hour signs, or even different coloured portions as well, just to sort of give drivers, the responsible drivers, an indication of what their responsibilities are, and then obviously any other measures that we can put in place to sort of like curtail the more irresponsible drivers, because we need to make sure our residents are safe. So I'd like to again thank Mr. Fitzgerald for his contribution this evening, and thank you for listening to us.
Councillor Tutwell, always a pleasure to hear from you. All the points you've made are valid. Certainly happy to consider them. Do keep hassling the police. I think they don't perform to the degree that they should for us. And this is a good example of when they could pull their finger out and do more. It won't solve the problem. Well, it wouldn't unless they're down there once a week with their speed camera, but it will certainly have an impact. We'll do the speed surveys and we will see what we can produce, what outcomes would make sense. My only slight fear, and this isn't just in relation to this, is that gradually we're going to cover the whole borough in speed humps and yellow lines and in 5 years' time we're going to look back and think, what have we done? But anyway, there we go. I do understand your point. I hope you've got a shiny new car to replace the old one, and we will come back to you. Thank you for coming.